Day 396 of doing a LeetCode problem every day until I get a job. All right, y'all, we're back again another day, another LeetCode problem where we're doing daily LeetCode problems. And today we have question number 929, unique email addresses. The difficulty level is easy, so you already know we're going to keep the solution as simple and easy to understand as well. But before we get started, y'all, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you need any new Apple AirPods, go ahead and check out that link in the description so you can get you some. Now let's see what the question says. Every valid email consists of a local name and a domain name. Separated by the @ sign, besides lowercase letters, the email may contain one or more period or plus sign. For example, in the string or email alice@leetcode.com, Alice is the local name and LeetCode.com is the domain name. If you add periods between some characters in the local name part of an email address, mail sent there will be forwarded to the same email address without dots in the local name. Note that this rule does not apply to domain names. For example, alice.z@leetcode.com and alicez@leetcode.com forward to the same email address. If you add a plus sign in the local name, everything after the first plus sign will be ignored. This allows certain emails to be filtered. Note that this rule does not apply to domain names. For example, m.yplusname@email.com will be forwarded to my@email.com. It is possible to use both of these rules at the same time. Given an array of strings emails where we send one email to each email's I, return the number of different addresses that actually receive emails. All right, y'all. So I know that question was kind of long, but once you understand what's going on, it's not that difficult to understand. So let's go ahead and take a look at these examples just to make sure that we're doing this problem correctly. So in the example 1, we have emails equals a string or an array of strings that are emails. The first string being test.email plus alex@leetcode.com. Second email being test.e.mail plus bob.kathy@leetcode.com. And the third email is test email plus david@lee.tcode.com. The output is 2. Explanation says test email at leetcode.com and test email at lee.tcode.com actually receive emails. So let's break this down one step further just so we can see what they did here. So as you can see, these two email addresses will receive the same email, because when we come up here and look at the rules, it says if you add periods between some characters in the local name part of the email address, mail sent there will be forwarded to the same address without dots in the local name. So what that means is we can just ignore these dots, right? These dots are irrelevant. With or without the dot, it's still going to get sent to. So test.email and test.e.mail is going to have the same thing. They're both going to end up being test email, because the dots it says, like, for example, alice.z@leetcode.com and alicez@leetcode.com forward to the same email. So that means if it has the dot, it's going to send to the same email as if it doesn't have a dot. It basically is going to remove the dot or ignore the dot if it's in the local name. So if it's on this side of the @ sign and there's a dot in it, it will ignore the dot and it will send it to the email as if no dot exists. That doesn't apply to this side, the domain side of the email, but it does apply to the local name of the email. So far we know that these dots are irrelevant, or we can ignore these dots. So we have, that will leave us with test email plus Alex, and over here that will leave us with test email plus bob.kathy. Now it says right here, if you add a plus sign in the local name, everything after the first plus sign will be ignored. So right now we have, over here we have test email plus Alex, but it says everything after the plus sign will be ignored. So we know this plus Alex will be ignored. So that leaves us with just over here, just test email over here. Same thing over here. With the dots, we will have just test email. We know the dots can be ignored, and it says everything after the first plus sign can be ignored. So that means everything after this plus sign, meaning Bob.Kathy, can also be ignored, which means these two emails will essentially receive the same emails, right? That's why the explanation says testemail.com. That's one email that will receive the emails, because these two email addresses right here are going to end up being the same once we include the rules that they've given us that say we can the dots will be ignored and everything after the plus sign will be ignored. Now let's look at this email. This email, same thing. We have the test email. We have plus David. So we know this plus David is going to be ignored. However, this is a different domain name. As you can see, it's a period in the domain name. So when it's in the domain name, it says, note that this rule does not apply in domain name. So when it's in the domain name, the dot will be included. It's not going to be ignored, which makes this a completely different domain name than this, because this one does not have a dot and this one does have a dot, meaning these are two different domain names, meaning they're two different email addresses. So that's why these two emails get combined as one, but this one doesn't, because this one has a dot in its domain name, and that is where this second output comes from. It says test email at lead.tcode.com will receive emails as well. So that's why the output is 2, because these two emails will receive the same email. They'll end up being the same email address once we follow the rules. So that counts as 1. And then this one right here is a completely different email, so that counts as 2. So I hope that makes sense to y'all. If not, let's take a look at example 3. Example 3 is a little bit easier to understand because all of the emails are different. So in example 3, we have the input emails equals an array of strings, which are emails. First, we have A at LeetCode.com, then we have B at LeetCode.com, then we have C at LeetCode.com. The output is 3 because each one of these emails will receive a different email. You see, this one has the A, this one is B, and this one is C. So they all have different local names. There are no dots or plus signs, so we can just treat them as is. And since they all have different local names, then they will all receive different emails, and thus that's why the output is 3, because there are 3 emails right here with 3 different local names. So I hope that made sense to y'all. And now that we understand the question, let's get into the fun part, the actual solution. Solution is not that difficult, nor is it that long. So let's get started. Now, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to use a set to store the unique normalized email addresses. So for that, come right here. We can declare a variable called unique emails. Set that equal to, it's going to be a set, then less than sign. Then we're going to pass in a string, then greater than sign, then we're going to initialize it with parentheses like this. Now we need to iterate through each email in the input list. So we're going to say for email in emails. We're going to open up the brackets, and we're going to split the email into local and domain parts using the @ sign. So we're going to say let parts, let's just say parts equal email dot split. Open up the parentheses, we're going to say separator, sorry, y'all, gotta make sure my spelling's right. And so colon, then we're going to open up the quotation marks, pass in the @ sign. So this is going to split the email and separate it wherever it sees the @ sign, and that's where it's going to split it at. So that will help us split up the local names and the domain names. Then we're going to say bar local. We're going to set that equal to a string, open up the parentheses, and we're going to say parts, square bracket 0. So this is going to set our local domain name to the first or the 0 index of after we split parts up, right? So the left half of parts, which in this case will be on the left side of the @ sign. Then we need to do the same thing for the domain name, which will be on the right side of the @ sign, or the right side of when we split it up. So for that, we're going to say let domain equal string, open up the parentheses, then we're going to say parts, square bracket 1. Boom. Now, if there's a plus sign in the local part, we can ignore everything after it. So for that, to handle that, we're going to say if let plus index equals local dot first index, open up the parentheses of colon, open up the quotation marks, put the plus sign in, then we're going to come outside of the parentheses, open up the brackets, we're going to say local equals string, open up the parentheses, we're going to say local square bracket dot less than sign plus index. Boom. Now we need to remove all period characters from the local part. So for that, come underneath this, and we're going to say local equals local dot replace or replacing occurrences of, or open up the parentheses, then we're going to say of colon, open up the quotation marks and dot, then we're going to come on outside of that comma, we're going to say with colon a blank string. So pretty self-explanatory. When we going through local, we're going to replace every time we see a dot, we're going to just replace it with a blank string, and that's how we're going to ignore the dot. Then we need to reconstruct the email and insert it into the set. So for that, come underneath this, we're going to say unique emails dot insert, open up the parentheses, local plus at, or excuse me, quotation marks at, come outside of that, I'm going to say plus domain. Then we're going to return the number of unique normalized emails. So for that, come right here, we just say return unique emails dot count. Boom. So that should be all she wrote, y'all. Told you the code was not that long, not that difficult to understand either. Let's give it a run. Okay, so let's see. It's a typo. This should have 2 R's. Ush. I don't know why why does it even change colors if it's not spelled right? You know what I'm saying? You see how this is gold a little bit? Why even change colors if they know the spelling's wrong? You know what I'm saying? You could tell me the spelling's wrong by staying the same color. I digress. It's accepted, y'all. So let's go ahead and submit it. Make sure it's still accepted after we submit it. Let's see. And look at that, y'all. 49 milliseconds beats 51.51% of users with Swift. We can definitely get those numbers up, but we'll worry about that as we continue down our LeetCode journey. Right now, we just want to be able to solve the problem that is presented to us, and I feel like this is a good solution for that because it's easy to understand, and we can use the knowledge that we've gained from this problem in our future problems. So with that being said, y'all, I hope y'all learned something today, and I hope to see y'all here tomorrow for another day, another LeetCode problem. I'll see y'all then.